I love hiking the Grand Canyon. I've probably hiked the Grand Canyon about 14 or 15 times in the past 2 years. There's something about it, being in a natural wonder that just evokes these deep spiritual feelings. It helps you reflect on what really matters in life. Well, my dad came down to Arizona. He doesn't visit that often, but he came to my house, and I thought, oh, this is a great opportunity. Dad, you can drop me off at the South Rim and then drive all the way around to the North Rim and pick me up. That way I can hike from the south to the north and not have to worry about transportation of cars and stuff. And he thought this was a good idea. I thought this was a good idea. It was a terrible idea because I've never done that before. It was an awful idea. But, like idiots, we're like, yeah, let's go and do this. This will be great. We'll bond, and then I'll drop my son off and he'll probably die. This is great. Let's do this, So my dad and I go to the South Rim. We take our last known photos, and then I go down into the canyon. And I tell him, I say, I think it's only going to take about 12 hours because historically that's what it's taken me to hike from one end of the South Rim to another end of the South Rim. But it's a completely different story to hike from the South Rim all the way over to the North Rim, which is 1,000 feet higher in elevation. So as I'm hiking, I think I'm so prepared. I got this. I can do this on my own. I'm so strong. I'm so experienced and wise, right? What I didn't account for was that the sun would be beating down on me for about 6 or 7 hours of the hike. Like no shade. There was a whole stretch of land where I didn't have any shade. Didn't have any sunscreen either because I'm so smart. I planned ahead. Well, I got to the base of the North Rim and it was starting to get dark. And the base of the North Rim is really where the challenge is supposed to begin. And I'm thinking, okay, I was supposed to meet my dad in about 30 minutes. I don't think I can make this in 30 minutes. It's probably going to be about another 3 to 4, maybe 5 hours to hike up the North Rim. But I start going because I know he's waiting for me. And as I'm going up, I can feel that I don't have any strength left. I'm not going to last. The sun had taken all of the energy out of me, and it had caused me to sweat and soak all of my clothes. And if you know anything about hiking, you know that one of the greatest dangers of hiking at night is when your clothes get wet, the wind will pick up, and it has the threat of giving you hypothermia because you're soaked, the wind is hitting you, and you're unprepared. You don't have a change of clothes. Well, that's where I was. I didn't have a change of clothes, and I was frigid. I was freezing. I was shaking. I couldn't feel my fingers. My lips were shaking. And at some point on that hike, I began to feel like I can't do this anymore. I don't have any more strength. And so I kind of ducked behind a couple of rocks to block myself from the wind. And I remember saying a prayer, one of those, hey, I know we don't talk much, but I could really use a favor right now, because I think I'm going to die. Can you help me? And then my prayer started to get more urgent. So I didn't feel like I was going to survive. And I remember the feeling I got, if it could count as a feeling, was just move forward a few more steps. And I thought, well, okay, I don't know if you heard, I just said I can't move forward, I don't have any more strength. But the feeling again was, move forward as much as you can. And so I moved forward. I probably did 2 more switchbacks, but I was out of that covering, right? I started moving up the switchbacks, and I was beginning to feel like I have nothing left to give. And that's when I heard someone say my name. And I thought, okay, I'm either hallucinating, that's either a park ranger, or that's the angel of death. And I really hope it's not a park ranger because I don't like small talk. The angel of death is just going to be very direct. I'm okay with that. I just don't want to do the small talk. And I listened to this voice because I really did think I was hallucinating at this point. And I listened to the voice. I heard my name again. I could barely hear it on the wind. And I listened. I heard my name again. And it was my dad. My dad, 70 years old, wearing loafers and jeans, a sweater vest, just for style, was hiking down the north rim of the Grand Canyon, a hike he had never done before. He even told me later, he said, Yeah, it went in two different directions. I didn't know which way I was going, but I thought this one looked good, so I went that way. Like, oh, well, that's great. I'm just glad it didn't go off a ledge, you know. But here's this 70-year-old man, my father, calling for me, and I can hear the worry in his voice. And something about hearing his voice, knowing that someone who loved me was looking for me, that gave me a strength I didn't know I had. And I started to go further and further. I was trying to call out to him. It was really hoarse. I didn't have a lot of water. So it was really hoarse calling back to him. Well, come to find out, he didn't even have his hearing aids in, so it didn't even matter. Why was he calling for me if he wasn't even going to be able to hear me? But I looked up and I could see this little light, this tiny little light just going. It was my dad, right? Well, come to find out later, that wasn't a flashlight. It was the light on the end of a battery charger for your cell phone, like one of those extension of life ones. He had taken that off and he was using that to hike down the Grand Canyon and find me. It was this little tiny light, but it gave me all the hope I needed to move forward. And I tell you that story because so often we're tempted to think, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do for someone who's struggling, for my loved one, for my son, for my daughter, for my brother, my sister, my friend. I don't know what to do. But I promise you, I know things don't always work out the way we want them to, but I promise you that what you do and the light you offer and the acts of service you render, when you do them in love, and that little light makes a difference. It saves lives. And I promise you that if you are struggling with suicidal thoughts, if you feel like your life doesn't matter, I promise you it does. And that one day, if you hold that reason for living close to your heart, one day you will stand at the precipice of the canyon and look back and realize that it was worth it. Moving forward, giving presentations, dealing with kids who are struggling, being the parent who stays up late for their child, it's all worth it. Thank you.